Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James, and I wanted to share a second pen today. This is a pen that I bought used off of eBay back around July of 2020, I think it was. And I don't have a lot of used pens that I've bought off of eBay. The reason for that is that some pens, certain kinds of pens, it's easy to come across counterfeits and difficult to know whether or not that's what you're getting until it's too late. And Pelikans do not tend to be pens that the counterfeiters copy. I don't really understand why that is, but it is. And so I felt a little bit safer as I was looking for a Pelikan in good shape on eBay that night. And I came across this one, which was a pen sold from an estate sale. Now let me say that sometimes I'm suspicious that there are so many pens sold in estate sales on eBay. And one of the tips that I have for that is look at everything else this person is selling. Does it look like it all came from an estate sale, or do they have 493 of those Mont Blancs from an estate sale from their grandfather? You know what I mean? So there's a guy in Japan, I think that's what he's doing. Anyway, this pen looked like a very legitimate listing, and the description of the pen, the photos of the pen, they were all good, and that's important. Look at all those photos. Look especially at the photos of the nibs. Sometimes there are sellers on eBay that you just need to run from, and one of the ways you can tell is they don't tell you anything about the nib other than it's a fine, a medium, or a broad, and then the photos are all blurry around the nib. Have you ever noticed that? I have noticed that, and yeah, we're on to you. You have perfect marketing level photos of everything but the nib. I run if I don't walk. But this had great photos, and you could see the condition of the nib, of the feed, of everything. And the person had a good reputation, and this was the only one they were selling, and everything else looked like it was from an estate sale from somebody who might have had a Pelikan fountain pen. And so I decided to buy it. The other good thing about this was that in this particular auction, and this is kind of, it's one of those things that you just kind of luck out on every now and then, there wasn't a lot of competition. I have no idea why. Maybe it didn't come up in everybody's list as it was being sold, but whatever. I didn't have a lot of bidding competition. I ended up getting this Pelikan M200, which is in pristine, out-of-the-box condition, which was only missing its box, and I didn't care. I got this for $40. And I know some may be saying, $40? But go price a new M200 Pelikan pen and then come back, and you'll understand why. So it is a really pristine example of this pen, and I'll show you that as I get into the design and all of that. But I wanted to share first with you that experience of buying this used, and those are some things to look for. Really great descriptions, really good photos, answers your questions. Sometimes if it's a real genuine estate sale, maybe they don't know everything about the pen themselves to ask, but check and see, and really pay a lot of attention to those details, and especially those nib picture details, because if the nib's a little bit bent, that photo probably is going to be a little bit blurry, and they're not going to mention it. And that's just a shame, because even that shouldn't always be a big deal. I bought an Esterbrook J that I'll share here in sometime in the next several weeks. Bought it, I don't know, year and a half ago, and I knew that it had a bent nib. The person said, it was dropped, the nib is damaged, but an Esterbrook J, you can get brand new, old stock nibs, and depending on which one you want, maybe even at a really reasonable price. So don't run from that, but check to make sure they're being honest about that, and then just look at all the other details and how good a deal it may or may not be. But pens that tend to be easily copied, those you really want to ask a lot of questions, and sometimes even just stay away from and go find. You'll pay a little bit more, but go find a reputable used pen dealer. This one, I got a great deal, and I wanted to share it with you though. So let's flip that camera and take a look. First, you will have to notice two things I think jump out at me, and that is that classic Pelikan beaked clip And that's just kind of one of the neat things about Pelikan pens that I like. And the other is I really do like both the green and the blue marble resin here, and so that's another thing that I like. They come out with all different kinds of colors and special editions and everything else. This one really is one of their common classic designs, and there are a few telltale signs about its age. Let's just start at the finial and work our way down from there. You will notice that it has a crowned finial, and that tells us something about the era in which it was made, and it has a single duckling on top with the painted on logo. So this is a fairly recent pen, anytime from 97 on, although there are some other telltale signs that make me think it is much later, such as this trim ring here at the piston knob that puts it a little bit later as well. As we come down the cap, this is a plastic cap, very nicely done, with the Pelikan name and Germany stamped into the trim ring at the base of the cap. You have that nice green marble resin that does have some nice chatoyancy, and you can see the light playing on the inside of that resin, so that's really nicely done. And then you have another trim ring, and then this is the piston knob. This is a piston filler pen. On a lot of pens, this is fake at the end, and it's just an end cap. Not so here. I'm not going to twist it. This pen has ink in it, and I would be making a mess, and yeah, we don't want to do that. The only thing about it, and I will say, I mentioned this in another review, that this step down from the marble to the piston, they say it has something to do with posting and yada, yada, yada. I'm going to leave that to them. That would be the only thing that, to me, when I look at that, it feels like, I hate to say this, because this is such a really nice pen, but it feels like a mistake. It's not. It's a design feature. Kind of like with an Apple computer, you find something, you go, what in the world did they do that for? And they go, well, it's a feature. So that's kind of the same thing with the Pelikan. Twists off, you notice, very quickly. Does not take much to get the cap off the pen. And then you get to this the plastic grip section, which you notice is very nicely finished. Now I can feel with my finger where that seam is, but I doubt you really can tell much beyond the color where that is. It's really a nice smooth transition, very nicely polished and finished there. Then it ends just in that little flare out at the end of the section. The section is not overly thin in diameter. I can write with this very comfortably. You do feel the grooves there a little bit, but they're not sharp. I find it comfortable in hand. And then we get to the nib. Let's take a little bit closer look at that nib. Now this is a gold-plated steel nib, so you're still getting a steel nib. This is a medium, and it writes very well, nice and smooth, very consistent, reliable pen, plastic feed, with just, normal features, as you can see. And the logo on the nib, simple, effective. You know what you've got, and you know what size it is, but not overly decorated. But a very nicely done and well-writing steel nib. And then, once you get past all of those, you have the Pelikan logo and the clip and all of that. It's really just a nicely done, classic-styled Pelikan pen. And I happen to like that look. Maybe not everybody does, but I definitely do. And a really well-balanced pen. I'm probably going to say that one more time because it's one of the things that always jumps out at me whenever I'm writing with this pen. Speaking of which, let's get to the writing. Okay, so this is the Pelikan M200. Very comfortable pen, even though it's smaller. And uncaps quickly, posts very securely, and I find it to be a very well-balanced pen in my hand. I don't have small hands, but I do find this to be a comfortable small pen. This is just not a big deal to me. Some people will kind of poo-poo the M200 and jump up to the 6 or the 800, which is an exponential jump even used in price. To me, it's just not personally necessary. I ain't judging anybody. It's just not necessary for me. This is, again, that's my problem there. I left it uncapped while talking. The Pelikan Classic. I'm going to let you imagine the word classic is there. the M200, and this is a medium nib, and it is a steel nib. It's gold-plated, but it's a steel nib. And this is the dark green. I can't write today. I can't write. I injured my right arm somehow. I don't even know how. And so I'm having pains here, and it's showing on the paper. The ink, anyway, is Pelikan's Dunkelgrün, dark green ink, which I really enjoy. It's one that I've had here on the channel a lot of times. You don't get really a lot of variation. You're not really supposed to. It is a stiff steel nib, but a very smooth medium nib. And not, I want you to notice, for a European medium, it's not overly broad. So compared to, say, a Lamy fine, this would look like a fine. So, keep that in mind. And let's check wetness. Not that wet, but well saturated, but not that wet. You can hear that. Most of that noise was actually coming from the pad. The pen is quite smooth, and my microphone also always tries to overcompensate at that point. Just an enjoyable pen to write with. Really dependable. You can see why they had the reputation that they do. And holds a good amount of ink, even though it's a smaller piston filler. And actually, that's one of the things I like about it. There aren't that many piston-filled pens at this size. They exist. TWSBI makes one in the Mini, but not all that many. It does just flow really well. It keeps all up there. I lifted there. This was my fault. But just a great, reliable, not shocking pen. And this is one that I got off of eBay at a third of its normal price. So those bargains are out there, and you just have to watch. And you may have to watch for a long time. I watched for something like this, searched for something like this for a good bit of time, but it paid off. So don't give up. Those pens are out there, and when you find one, you're going to really enjoy it. If you're impatient, well, just save up more and pay full price. Otherwise, there are some great bargains, and I encourage you to go and to find them. Do I recommend the pen? Listen, if you can find this at a bargain like this, I would ask you, why in the world have you not ordered it already? That would be my recommendation. Let me do a quick size comparison. I was about to just sign off without doing one, but I really shouldn't do that. Here is same pens I had earlier today. I have the Jinhao, if I can get it out of the case there, 51, which gives you an idea. A lot of you have those pens. Here is a TWSBI, speaking of TWSBI earlier, and that is the Diamond ALR. Here is, some of you have the Waterman Graduate, and that gives you an idea. So it is a smaller pen, but a very comfortable pen, and especially posted. Even if you don't normally write posted, you might with this one, and you'll find it's very well balanced. So there you go. One of my favorite used bargains that I found. Maybe it is the favorite used bargain that I found. I wouldn't really call it vintage. It's not that old a pen, but a great one. So happy hunting as you go and look for whatever it is that you're looking for, and hoping to find a good bargain on, because everybody likes a good bargain. God bless you, and have a great week.